Well, hello and welcome to episode 3 of the Go for the Goldie podcast. Joining us today is one of my near and dear friends, Phillip Young. Phillip, how are you today, my friend?
Man, I'm doing good. Doing good. I took a little nap, so I'm still waking back up. Had to chug some coffee,
Yeah, this
get
morning
all pumped up.
for those watching this morning, I sent him a text. I'm like, "Hey, here's the, it's a funny story on two fronts. A, because I'm like, here's the artwork for the episode today. Go ahead, share it." And he goes, "I appreciate that, man, but I'm not the duathlon national champion."
No, no, I think that was Justin Lippert or Todd Buckingham.
So
Yeah,
shout out to them. Shout out
yeah,
to them.
yeah.
Um,
That's right.
but I sent him that, and he's like, "Oh, thanks, man. This looks good, though." And so I made the adjustment. Then he's like, "Yeah, also I just did 108 miles today." I'm like, what?
Yeah, yeah,
So how long does
yeah.
something like that take you?
Man, I think so. We started really early today, and it's funny. It's a funny story. One of Goldie and I's mutual friends, Bubba Hayes, and I got into a little friendly wager on who was going to ride the most this week, and the loser buys a case of beer. So Bubba and I have been riding this week, and he's ridden just about every day. But all the stuff happened with Garmin where you can't upload your rides and stuff
Oh,
right
that's a bad
now.
week to have this going
It's a
on.
bad
Okay,
week.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So you got to use your phone. Well, Bubba tells me that he says he didn't say that he wasn't riding on Thursday, but he didn't. He ended up riding anyway. But he made it sound like to me like he didn't. So I thought I was in the lead this whole time. Turns out I'm actually like
Wow.
30 miles behind. So Bubba was like, "I'm gonna ride a century on Saturday. I'm gonna start from my house in Carterville about 4:15." Well, for me to keep up and do the same amount of time, I had to start at 3:30 in the morning
Oh my
to ride
God.
out to his house to meet him, and then we went and rode out through downtown Memphis and out to Shelby Forest, which is one of the fun areas outside of Memphis. Had a little pit stop at the general store, so shout out to the general store in Shelby Forest, and got an old classic Coke and a sausage biscuit, and then headed back in. So
So if you're watching this, you'll see that it says 2019 Aquabike age group national champion. And there's two words that catch your eye, national champion. Okay, well, if you're willing to get up at 3:30 in the morning on a Saturday to ride 108 miles because you want a case of beer, you're a national champion.
Yeah, thank you. Yep. It's a
So
little bit more bragging rights too with
no,
Bubba.
that's,
So we
hey, you
both
got to find your
are definitely
motivation.
doing that.
You got to find your
Yep,
motivation, and
absolutely.
that's yours. And I know Bubba, and I love Bubba, and
Yep, had
Bubba
some
is
good
actually
times.
he's actually my motivation. I mean, we've only done 2 races against each other, and
Yeah.
it's 50-50. I caught him at the tail end of the national championships in Cleveland, and
Yep.
remember, I have
Yep.
a picture that I didn't even know he was in of me
Uh
hightailing it at
huh.
the end. And then
Yep.
in Switzerland, I remember uh, it kind of like snaked it right at the end. There was a 180-degree turn, and I saw him, and he was far enough ahead. He goes, "Come get me, Goldie!" And
Uh huh.
I
Yep.
remember that just lit a fire under my ass, and I unfortunately didn't catch him, but he was pretty. It
Yeah.
was close,
Made an
so
effort.
we
Yep.
gotta have that
Yep.
rubber race, coming up.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
But the other thing I was gonna
Absolutely.
say, so I also rode my bike today, and I
Good.
rode my
Yeah.
bike for I did 54 miles
Nice.
because
That's solid. Yeah.
and honestly, I did not intend to do 54 miles. It was a combination of you texted me that you did 108. I'm like, okay, this is and then I told myself I'm gonna do 3 hours because I had this like ridiculous one slated, and
Yeah.
neither here nor there. But anyways, at 3 hours, I was at 54 miles, and I'm like, that's very iconic because that is literally exactly half of the mileage that
Exactly
you did,
half. Yeah.
and I am
Yeah.
half of the human being that you are physically. Like
Whatever.
you are like 7 feet tall, and I'm like 3.5. So there you go. But
Did you ride trainer this morning doing that?
yeah, I honestly, man, I
That's
never ride
awesome,
outside.
man.
Well, I do
Dude,
the
good for
Zwift.
you. That's
You know,
yeah, yeah. The Zwift definitely makes it fun, but man, once you start getting into multiple hours on a trainer, that's some good mental adversity. So that's some awesome stuff.
well, it's on
So
Twitch,
yeah,
so I'm talking
yeah,
to other people, and it makes the time go by really quick. And
absolutely.
I've
Yeah,
gotten really good at
that's
talking to
awesome.
myself. So it's
Yeah, yeah.
I'm annoying and people don't really want to listen to me, so I just talk to myself.
Oh, whatever.
So this is where, I guess what we'll get kicked off with here is, the reason that I started this is, I want to provide the opportunity for people to understand what sports are out there. I basically, like, what I think, and this is just my personal belief, but the more I talk to different people is, people who play, high school sports, college
Hmm.
sports, a lot of people kind of operate under the assumption that competing at a high level kind of ends when that's
Yeah.
over, and
Yep.
um, for me, I played, like semi-pro, and I played arena football. But as I got older, up into my 20s, everyone knows the story. It's, the first podcast. But anyways, um, I got into this world of endurance sports, and I'm nowhere near, obviously, your level and other people that I know. But the term, even, let's just start with this, aquabike. A lot of
Hmm.
people, most people don't even know what that means. And then to
Yeah.
see the term
Yeah.
national champion next to it kind of perks some people's ears up. You know what I mean? So, if you want to go ahead and explain basically what that moniker, let's start there. What
Yeah.
does
Yeah. Yeah.
2019 Aquabike age group national champion mean exactly?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So, USAT, USA Triathlon puts on national championships every year. Goldie mentioned earlier, we did a race, and he raced against my buddy Bubba, and had a good fun sprint finish with him at the end. That was in Cleveland, Ohio. That's the age group national championships for both sprint and Olympic distance triathlon. So swim, bike, run for the sprint portion, and then for the Olympic portion or standard portion, which is usually about twice as long as the sprint. The Aquabike is part of the Miami Man long course national championships that USAT puts on. It's done in Miami, right there by Miami Zoo. Really fun venue. But it's the long course national championships. So it's basically a half Ironman event.
Now just
1.2.
define the distances, just so we know we're all on
Yeah,
the
yeah,
same
yeah.
page.
So they have a couple of options. It's a multi sport festival. So they've got a couple options. They got a duathlon, which is a run bike run. They've got a aquathon, which is a swim or a run swim run, and then I did the aquabike, which is a swim bike event. So
And just to
for
be
my
clear, Phil,
distance, yeah,
those are three completely different sports that you just mentioned. And
yeah,
there's national championships for each one of those. That's
absolutely,
where this is.
yep,
And it's
yep,
by age group.
yep, exactly. And you
Okay.
don't have to qualify for this event to go to it. It's every year in Miami. Like I said, it's a very fun event. They've got a lot of food trucks out there. I think Max Cycling is like the local shop that puts on. They're the big sponsor of the Miami Man event. It's a really fun venue. It is usually very hot. It's in November. As of right now, I think it's still on in Miami. But yeah, it's crazy because doing some of this training, I'm in Memphis, Tennessee, is where I'm located. Right now it's 105 with the heat index outside. But you get into October, early November, it's pretty cool. Some of the days going into training, I'm wearing like long sleeves, a base layer, pants or whatever, with my bibs. Whereas, Miami Man, it'll be 85 degrees, November 9th or something like that down there. So it can be very warm.
I was gonna say
And
too,
it's
we got a
not very
question from
shady.
we got a question in the peanut gallery here.
Yeah.
He asked November what, but you just answered it without even knowing. So that's
Yeah, I think
divine
it's
intervention.
November 9th. Yeah. That's funny.
So
Yeah.
November 9th.
No,
Okay.
yeah, I think it's
so
still on. Yeah. Yeah, very, like I said, very fun event. The Aquabike is a 1.2 mile swim and a 56-mile bike. They have the triathlon version, which you just add a 13-mile run to the end of that. So I like it personally because, especially, usually this is like my last end of the season race. Around here in Memphis, triathlon typically starts in like April. So I mean, if I run April to November, it's a pretty long race season.
Mhm.
So it can be a bunch of races, especially last couple of years. We've gone to world championships in Switzerland. We've gone age group nationals, and in Cleveland and been able to do some cool events. So ending the year with a swim bike versus a full triathlon, doing the run as well is a little bit more enjoyable because especially, in the heat and stuff, not being used to it being cooler in Memphis during that time. It's a fun ending of the year for me, just because, all I have to do is do the swim and bike portion, which are my two favorite of the three for a triathlon anyway.
I was going to say, I'm the different way. I cut that bike out. Give me an aquathlon, right? Or aquathon, whatever the hell it's called. Yeah, that's
yeah. And see, that might be a fun thing to look at doing, because it is a pretty cool one. It's a really cool venue, like I said. Like it's like a little bay there that you swim in, so it's really neat. You can see very far down. You can see probably like 10-12 feet down.
Wow.
Which is really rare a lot of times. Like, I know you're the same way. Like any open water swims, you're lucky if you can see your hand.
Oh, in Texas, these lakes are gross. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all super gross. So yeah, it's nice to be able to see something and stuff. So
and that's I'm still waiting on because I know Nationals non-draft got canceled in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed for Arizona, right? I mean, the draft one, because I want to really, that Bermuda, how enticing is that, to go to the Worlds in Bermuda?
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Do you have any insight into what they're going to be doing with that? Like, how are they going to determine the field for that?
So what I've heard for Bermuda is, this year national or Worlds, ITU Worlds for short course for sprint and Olympic distance was going to be in Canada.
Yep, we were going to that.
And they're just moving. Yeah. And I think you're going to see an email where from what I've heard, they're just going to move Canada to Bermuda.
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
So like they're just going to go straight to that instead. So if you qualified for Canada, you have the opportunity to roll it to Bermuda.
Oh, you just put a big smile on my face if that's true, man. Because I got a whole posse going down to Bermuda if I make it,
Oh, dude, I know. Because I thought the same thing. I was like, man, because I qualified for Canada, Edmonton, and was like, and decided to do so Aquabike last year when I did it, and I won the age group national championship. It qualifies me for long course ITU World Aquabikes, which would have been in Almere, which is just outside of Amsterdam. So
holy cow, that's sweet.
Yeah. So I was planning on going back to that in September of this year. That's got pushed to next year. So I think I may still try to do that. So, but that actually, it's interesting because that, Miami Man was a half Ironman race essentially. So 1.2 mile swim, 56-mile bike. Well, it qualifies you for our ITU long course. So it's actually a full Ironman that I would do for the Aquabike Worlds. So it would be a 2.4 mile swim and a 112-mile bike for Almere. So, which I've never done anything that long before.
Listen, you can do it. You can obviously do it. You're a beast.
Thank you. It'd have been fun. So,
and just to clarify for those who don't know, what the ITU is think of it like a governing body, like the NFL, right? It's like just that for triathlon. It's global. They have events. Yep. It's kind of like NASCAR, maybe. Maybe it's a better comparison where they have races all over the world, and then they have a grand final. And what we're talking about is at the amateur level, when you qualify for these world championships, you go to the grand final. So we'll race the day before or the day after the professionals do it. So like when we were in the Netherlands, we raced on Saturday we raced on Sunday and the professionals raced on Saturday. So
which makes it really cool because you get to see a lot of these pros at these events and stuff. So I mean, it's I think I've seen Vincent Louis and Spivey and all these famous famous pros and like in fact actually one of my buddies here in Memphis, Seth Ryder, races. Shout out to Seth. He races for actually on the Team USA national team for the pro team, essentially the elite under 23. So I've seen him in a couple of these races and stuff. It's super fun to watch the pros race at this.
Like forever. This moment is like frozen in my mind, and the moment I'm talking about with Seth when we were sitting there on that bar in Switzerland, just watching these young kids just crank it up, and we were on the hill, you know, so it's just
Yep,
like
and they're
this
just
crazy.
smashing the hill.
Oh my God. And you
Yeah.
remember he made the move right in front of us. He
Yep.
like passed like
Yep.
4 people. And I was like,
Yep.
oh my God. Like I have chills talking about it now because like that
Yep.
hammer down sprint. Oh, I love that. That was so cool to
It was
see.
fun. Oh, it was super fun to watch. In fact, actually, I got the opportunity. Seth is back in Memphis because obviously there's no racing going
Mm-hmm.
on the ITU level, and I did a ride the other day with him and got to catch up with him, and was actually talking about it and like the strategy behind it. Because you know, to what Goldie's referring to, he was racing the relay, which
Relay, yeah.
it's a really cool thing that they do because it's 4 people, 2 guys, 2 girls. And the Team USA has like the strongest women in the world, like 5 of the top 10 women in the world. And he's racing as the anchor, so the 4th person on the relay, and each person of the relay does their own like mini triathlon. So it's like he probably did, I don't know the exact numbers, but it was probably I don't know, 400-meter swim, a 10K bike, maybe a 12K bike, and then like less than a 5K run. So I mean, it's just, you
Just
know,
pedal to the metal.
red line.
Yeah.
Red line as hard as you can go. So he came out and just crushed the swim and got a good gap. You know, and was able to get a lead. Well, it's draft legal, so people are working together. He saw that he was starting to get caught up by, I'm trying to remember, it was some very big name pros. He was starting to get caught up in the bike, so he got eaten up, was able to rest and recover, and then like exactly like Goldie said, then he came up to the big hill portion of it, and he just cranked it up the hill and attacked again. And yeah, it was cool to see because he was telling me, he was like, yeah, we had 5 people in our group at that point. And I think it knocked it down to 4. So it was cool because, you know, that obviously helps him because he was running against some of these guys that are the fastest runners in the world. So, you know, it was better for him. Bike is his strength as well. It behooved him to really push it on the bike course.
And it's a hill that was also a part of the course that we did the day before.
Absolutely.
So we knew firsthand how ridiculous that hill was.
Oh,
so to see him do that was like, okie dokie.
Just slam it up the hill. Yeah.
So we got a question here. What is the payout if you win an event? So I don't know if we're talking pro or amateur. I don't even know the answer for pros. For amateur, I don't think you win anything, right? Or is it?
No, most races don't. There are a couple, like there's a race here in Memphis, you know, Memphis in May triathlon. Usually obviously happens in May. Didn't happen this year. It got pushed to August, and then I don't think it's happening. I think it got canceled in August too. But Memphis in May, we do an event here. PR event management put on an event that they do where they do an amateur challenge is what it's called. So they take your combined times. You do an Olympic distance on Saturday and a sprint distance on Sunday of a triathlon, and then they take your combined times, and then they pay out the top 15 people of those combined times.
That's pretty cool.
So you can win some. Yeah, so you can win some money there. I think, you know, if you win first in that, you may win probably about $1,000, maybe.
Nice.
Something like that. So, you know, I think, you know, I've won a little bit of money over the years, but it was like enough to maybe cover my, you know, what I paid for the race or something.
Hey, better than nothing. That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Exactly. Yeah. Or some beer money afterwards, you know, gas, whatever. So,
awesome. Well, something else I want to do. I just think it's a funny story how we met.
I was thinking it too. Good. I'm glad you wanted to do that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, hell yeah. We're definitely going to talk about it. We're not going to, you know, put this out in the stratosphere without talking about this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'll give you my perspective, and then you can give me kind of fill in the blanks. You know, this is what I remember.
Cool.
So
cool.
I was like pretty brand new to the sport, and I really didn't know what the hell I was doing. I think nationals were like my 3rd race ever or 4th race.
I was going to say that's what I remember. It was like you saying it was like your 3rd race. Yeah.
So we were in the transition area getting set up for the race the next day, and Phillip just happened to be next to me. And you know, when you sign up, you're arbitrarily kind of placed. It's not alphabetical, and we'll get to that in a second. But I'm just chewing this guy's ear off with all these questions because I'm panicking. You know what I mean? Because like, again, I like to compete. I want to do my best, and I had no idea what to expect. This was the national championship compared to these, you know, local Buffalo races that I'd done. So it was night and day from what I had known, quote unquote, in the 2 races I've done. So I'm chewing your ear off, asking questions, and then I remember you going, listen, man, like if you got questions, like throughout the next, I could tell, I don't mean this to sound like in a bad way. I could tell you felt bad for me because I was like panicking. You know what I mean? You're like,
We've
listen,
all been
man.
there. Yeah. Yeah,
You're like,
absolutely. We've all been there.
and you
Yeah.
go, listen, man, if you got any questions, like, my name's Phillip Young. Let's be Facebook friends. You could,
Yeah.
point out anything, whatever. So then I, I kind of like, this was around the same time that I started following a lot of people on social media platforms that were high level in the sport. And I got to understand, what level of commitment Phil had to the sport. He was incredible. And I start to, I drew motivation from you. So then the next year at nationals, we were like, yo, let's meet up. And we're like, yeah, we'll get a beer or something after the race. Or, well,
Yeah.
lo and
Yeah.
behold, we are next to each other again.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking thousands of people at this event. Like, this is no,
Yeah.
like, it's not
Yeah. I
like
think our
it's
age group is several hundred folks,
right. So it's
So
the chances. And then we're like, when did you sign up? And he's like, nowhere near when I did. Well, your last name's
yeah.
Young, mine's Goldsmith. Okay.
Yeah. So they don't
And
put it that way.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely not by height and
Yeah.
height or
Yeah.
ability.
But I mean, it was literally like, because like it was like, the first year it was like we were right next to each other, and then the next year it was like we were almost exactly the same
Yep.
spot away, and we both like were like in transition. We're like, hey, yeah, I remember,
Yep.
yeah, we were right here next to each other last year. So
then I'm like, it was like one of those stepbrothers moments where it's like, did we
Yep.
just become best friends?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
the,
exactly. We're like, this is meant to be.
that's right. So
yeah.
then you straight up qualified for Worlds right at that race.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the race that qualified us for Rotterdam.
For
I think,
Rotterdam, yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
yeah,
he
I
straight
think
up
that was when it was
qualified.
in Omaha.
It was in Omaha, yep.
Nebraska.
Yep.
Yeah.
So he straight up qualified, and then I wound up getting a roll down spot. And we had a mutual friend,
Yeah.
Eric Gusa, and
Yep.
he was top of our age group as well at the time. So the three of us, really, I guess we'll just say we lived it up in the Netherlands, and I guess we'll keep it at that.
It
right?
was fun. It was so fun.
It was a good
One of my
time.
favorite trips.
Oh, that was amazing. That's why you want to go
Yeah.
back, right? Because it was
Yeah.
so much
absolutely.
fun.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
So that's our story, how we met. And I think
Yep.
it's just, I just like illuminating situations like that because,
Yeah.
and again, I'll go back to that moment we talked about just a couple minutes ago when we were watching Seth climb up that hill. Well, the other part of that day was it was me, my fiance, you, and your wife, who was pregnant at the time, and we didn't know.
Yeah. yeah. We found out like a few
Right?
days later. Yep.
It was the four of us sitting there talking about, kind of taking in the moment, like how amazing it is that we're just sitting there able to do this, and we have friends that we're going to be able to travel the world with the rest of our lives if we continue to compete.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I just like to illuminate kind of things like that because I think this is really where that sense of community that you get and the sense of achievement and putting as much of your effort and time and just elbow grease, I guess, into your training and having it come to fruition in those moments where you can really soak it in and enjoy it with people that you love. I mean, I would have never thought when I started racing in 2016 that I would have been sitting there in Lausanne, Switzerland with this freaking awesome couple that I met through racing that we're going to have lifelong friends. You know what I mean? It's just like,
absolutely.
It was amazing.
Yeah. No, you say so many good things there that I completely agree with. Specifically, like, we've been able to create relationships from this, not even like, like we said, at random almost, like how we were put together and just like meant to be. But it's so fun. And that's so great about the triathlon multi-sport, endurance sport side of things, whether it's, ultra running or cycling, or triathlon or aquabike or all this stuff. What it's fun is that, like, we've been able to travel to so many different places. I've been with you in Omaha and Cleveland and Switzerland and Amsterdam. I've gone, you talked about Eric Gusa. I've gone to Australia with Gusa.
And I was supposed to be there, but I moved to Texas.
And he moved to Texas that week. Yeah. So, I mean, it's cool to be able to experience these things and like create friendships and relationships with people that, like, especially with us being in the same age group and stuff, like we're, as we continue to do these sports for years, we'll be able to travel and see different places and stuff that, like, even people that I've known my whole life here in Memphis, experiences I don't necessarily have with them, because I haven't traveled the world with them, and it's something cool, and it's a way to motivate and, kind of keep you, like you mentioned, that's the great thing about the sport is, I grew up playing all sorts of, basketball, baseball, a little soccer, ultimate frisbee. So I played a little bit of every sport.
I want to get into that in just 1 second, but before we get into that, we got another question here.
All right.
So we had someone, are there preferred courses compared to others based on skill set needed, weather, etc.? So if you want to go ahead and answer that one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I talked about Miami, man, Aquabike. I think part of the reason I've done so well at that course is because it's a very flat. I mean, flat course. It's Miami. So if you've ever been to Miami, like, right outside of where near the zoo where it is, man, it's a flat course. So, I mean, for me, that's great. I'm a big dude. I'm 6'4", probably been drinking some beer and eating some Mexican food. So I'm probably a little over
riding
108
miles.
Right,
so come on now.
Yeah. Trying to burn it all off. Yeah. So I'm a little over 205. About that's probably what I'm at right now, 205. I think usually I'm trying to stay in the 190s, 195 race weight. So I'm a bigger dude for a triathlete as far as that goes. But for me, obviously without it being a hilly course, flat is great for me because I can just hammer the bike. And as long as you're fighting the headwind good and stuff. So I mean, I think last year it was the best bike split I've ever had. I think I was right at a 25 mile per hour average for 56 miles.
That's ridiculous.
Which I've never ridden that fast. So, but I mean, it was so much fun. What's crazy is I still was like, I think there were still like there were two guys that beat me on the bike course. I think maybe three. It was 2 or 3. So, but I mean, so there's definitely more certain courses that appeal better than others. And, I think there's something to be said too in racing. Like if it's a course you've done multiple times, like the race that's happening, there's Goldie and I were talking offline before, there's not a lot of racing happening right now, but there is a race happening outside of Memphis in Forest City, Arkansas in 3 weeks. It's one of the longest running races in the country. It's called Mighty Mite Triathlon. I think this is the 38th or 37th year that it's happened.
That has to be around as long triathlon has been around. I mean, triathlon has not been around that long.
It's been going on for a long time. It's a fun course. It's a point-to-point race. So kind of similar like we did in Draft Legal Worlds in Rotterdam.
Yeah.
You set up transition for your first transition for the swim, and your bike stuff is set up in another transition. So you literally go from one transition to the other, whereas in most triathlons, you come back to the same spot, and then you bike from there or run from there. It's a point-to-point race, but it's really like, hey, I've raced this race before. I know the course. That goes a long way. So.
See, I think so. Basically, I think what it boils down to is, I think whoever asked this, Ryan asked the question. So I think what you're saying is basically, skill set does have a lot to do with it. Like for me, I like hills because I'm a short, little compact guy, so I can get up the hills kind of quick. You know what I mean? And that's like a long course that's long and flat is my worst nightmare to race against people like you that can just like a freight train, just hammer it. So thanks. Whenever I see a question, I want to if people are interacting.
Absolutely.
So this is where I wanted to kind of lead it next is your background, your history. Obviously, you weren't an 8-year-old and you were like, all right, I want to get into Aquabike.
Right.
They may happen now,
ride my bike 108 miles.
Yeah, exactly. And it wasn't the sport that it is today, even if it was around, 25 years ago or whatever. But so let's, take us through kind of like your childhood, as a kid. What sports did you play, and how did you eventually wind up to landing on, triathlon, Aquabike, and all this kind of stuff?
No, absolutely. So growing up, I played just about every sport I could. I didn't play like, super competitive for any one specific sport. My parents were always pretty cool with letting me play whatever I wanted to do, whether it be a, rec league or a church league or whatever. So, I mean, I played some soccer in high school, but I played, high school baseball. I played, basketball and church leagues all growing up. Played on Ultimate Frisbee League in Memphis. That was a ton of fun. I swam growing up in middle school, so that's kind of how I got into the triathlon side. I think 6th through 9th grade I swam. Got into swimming competitively and did some swim meets and stuff, and that's kind of how I got into the triathlon side. And then I got a buddy here. I don't think Goldie, you've ever met him, but one of my good friends that I've known for forever. My buddy Adam has always been a good runner, and he got me into running. So we started doing some running together. Where we'd meet up on a Thursday after work, Thursday afternoon, and go run a 5K. And we were like, oh man, we ran 3 miles, 3.1 miles, and we were like, that was tough.
Look back on that now?
yeah, exactly. So we started off doing relays, and then they got me. One of our mutual other friends was big into cycling, and they got me into riding bikes, and I bought a bike, and we started doing relays. So we would do a race together where I would do the swim portion, Mike Rose would do the bike portion, and then Adam would run. And we would do pretty good as an age group or as a relay team. We always did pretty well and had a pretty competitive team. But like triathlon is always swim, bike, run in that order, unless it's like some special event that they do it in a backwards order, but it's always swim, bike, run for the most
or double
part.
right?
So
Don't they have double sometimes?
Yeah, they do doubles or like that. Yeah, exactly. Or some of these relays now, like Super League and stuff, they may do like swim, bike, run, or they might do like some of these bigger events, they might switch it up sometimes to do bike, swim, run, or something like that. Or there's events that do it like that, but most triathlon you're always going to swim first. So doing the relay portion, I was always the first one done. So I'd get done and I'd have to watch all these other people out there and be like, man, they're out there still racing. And, Adam's going to be gone running for the next 40 minutes. And, Mike, it's a 40K bike. So Mike will be about an hour time, doing that. So I'm sitting there kind of standing around, and we had done well on the relay. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to sign up and do one of my own. My first race I ever did, the full triathlon myself, was a race called Dragonfly Triathlon. It's a fun race, and it was really hot back then. I did it in June, I think, and then I got done, and I think I finished 9th of 9th in my age group. Just didn't do great at all. I got done, felt so dehydrated. I finished. They had a little sprinkler tent by the finish line afterwards. I think I laid in the sprinkler tent for like an hour afterwards. It was just like, I'm so hot.
You deserved it.
Yeah, just laid there and tried to rehydrate. So yeah.
So that's okay. So that's really where, like, I think a lot of triathletes get into it later in life, and I think your story kind of exemplifies that idea where it's like, what if I go a little harder? What if I go a little harder? What if I go, you know what I mean? Yep. And just one thing leads to another. And then all of a sudden you turn around and you're the Aquabike age group national champion. If I were to tell you that 10 years ago, you'd be like, no, come on.
Yeah, what? No, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the great thing about, the sport is, you mentioned it earlier, people, especially from a competitive background where they played, high school or college or, semi-pro ball or whatever, and did stuff, usually you tend to age out of that eventually, that's just life. That's how it works, in a lot of those sports, in those cases. You see it all the time for, Goldie and I talk about NFL players and fantasy football and stuff like that. Like, I think we were talking the other day about Frank Gore, I sent you a meme or something about him because he's been around for forever, but what's cool about multi-sport is it's compound fitness. So, as you build on each year, if you, hey, I put in the work in the off season, I made 10% gains on my number. Well, if you do that every year, eventually there is a bell curve to it. But if you do that every year, you actually theoretically get faster the longer you do the sport. So there's a lot of people that, hey, we may have started, I think I started racing probably in my early mid 20s. If you add it up over time, I could actually be faster at, 38 than I was at 23.
And endurance sports too. You can peak a lot later as well. There's
absolutely.
Yeah. And the other thing,
even on the pro level, some of the long course Ironman event guys, like they get into their late 30s, winning Ironman events. So,
and that's the thing I wanted to say too, that kind of loop it back to when you were talking about, you were a swimmer. If someone's listening to this and they're thinking about getting into triathlon and it's an intimidating thing for them, if you have a swimming background, that gives you exponentially just such a better head start because anyone can run and anyone can bike. It's the swimming when you're open water, when you're fighting a
Yeah.
crowd, you know what I mean? When you're getting kicked and punched in the face and stuff, it's uncomfortable. I mean, you can be a
Yeah.
professional, it's not uncomfortable. You know, it's a weird,
Yeah.
and it's the only sport in the world where you can't breathe. Well, maybe not the only. I mean, there's like free diving and stuff, but you can't
Yeah.
breathe whenever you want. You know what I mean? You have to
Yeah.
rhythmically breathe, and that's a very
Yep.
bizarre concept. And if you know how to do that from having swam in middle school, high school, or even as a kid, you have a leg up. You know, and I guess the learning curve is going to be less for you. You know, you're going to be really able to succeed. I think a lot quicker than someone who's learning how to swim.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And especially if you're somebody young, what I would say too to that regard, what I've seen from, like I said, about 10 years of racing is that to me, it seems like, especially if you, as a young person, if you get into swimming and running, whether it be cross country or, competitive swimming at a young age, cycling typically takes longer for you to get stronger because
Hmm.
you're growing into a stronger adult,
Right.
as you grow on in life. But like having a swim background or a run background, like especially from a young age, those are the two things I think more than anything help play in terms of like if you want to move forward in triathlon. People say on the swim, you can't win a race on the swim, but you can definitely lose it on a swim. And I think that's completely true. Most of the time, like people that just like go crazy, balls out on the swim, they've also got to be able to do the
They
other
burn
events
out.
too. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, they can absolutely burn out, which, that's a big reason why I chose to do Aquabike the last couple of years, because I don't have to do a run at the end. So I can just put it all out on the front. So,
Well,
yeah.
your strategy worked out, so I'm happy for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
So we got another question here. So for a triathlete, what is your goal at each race? So is your plan to PR? Do you want to win your age group? Do you want to win overall? What is the ultimate goal?
I think it changes race to race. It can vary. Sometimes it may be all of those things. Trying to PR, depending on the competition, who's there. It may be, hey, I want a shot at the overall. I want to get up on the podium. In some cases, nationals, age group nationals, or even worlds, ITU worlds, some of the draft legal stuff. I know I'm not going to be on a podium for something like that.
Right.
So in some cases, for the draft legal portion, like last year in Switzerland, I knew, hey, if I push my hardest on the swim and my hardest on the bike, maybe I can help some of the other Team USA guys that have a shot at the podium.
And that was not an
Because
easy bike. That was not an easy
yeah, it's
bike.
not an easy bike. Yeah, I mean, it was a tough hilly bike. There's a lot of turns and stuff. But since it's draft legal, you can work together. So, for me, run is my weak link. I may run at best, let's say a 19-minute, 19 right under 20-minute 5K off the bike. Well, some of these guys that, are taking a shot at the podium are running 15, 16-minute,
Ridiculous.
5Ks off the bike, just crazy
Yeah.
fast. So, in a race like that, 4 minutes, 4 minutes, that's 30 spots,
Right.
in terms of where you are in the age group. So for me at that point, it was like, okay, I want to swim this time and come out of the water with these people, because then I can bike in a pack with those guys and I can help them and I can put myself out there and redline myself on the bike, because it'll help them in the long run on the run where their legs will be fresher to run. So, some cases it may be something like that. It kind of depends race to race, but yeah, usually you'll have some sort of goal going into it. And it's funny, even related to that too. When we got back from Switzerland last year, and did a race, and I did a race 2 weeks after I got back. One of our good friends in McKenzie, Tennessee, they put on a race, and we went and did that race. And I didn't do any prep work. I didn't look to see, hey, what is the course like? I didn't look to see, who's racing, knowing, especially racing local for so long.
Now you
for
sound
10
like
years. I
me
know a
because
lot
I
of
never know
players.
what's going on.
Yeah. So, but it was one of my best races of the year because I didn't necessarily care that much.
Right.
I wasn't putting it all into it. Whereas like, at Worlds, in my head, I'm thinking, okay, I need to swim a 10-minute, 800
every
10
stroke,
minute,
every pedal
quarter mile.
stroke, every step, you're
Yep.
thinking. You're looking at the
Yep.
elevations. You're looking at
Yep.
what part of the
Yep.
course you're going to have to crank up the hills and what time, when to conserve
Absolutely.
energy. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Like, hey, in this section of the hill, I may want to go ahead and get out in front early on this hill because then we've got a big long descent, and I don't want to be in a group of people coming down a hill into a right-hand turn at 40 miles per hour.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to try to create a gap early so that I can be out in front and comfortable alone, or whatever. So there's different strategy that goes into it.
So what he just said, just so to be clear, what he just said is an actual real thing that was a part of that course. There was a hill that went into a 90-degree turn that they actually put pads up, and people were flying into it. And
absolutely. Yeah.
My fiance sat there and watched people flying into the pad, and she's like, "Oh, Brian's definitely gonna fly into that pad."
Definitely. He'll be here in a second. Yeah.
And I remember, so for me, I'm not like, just to kind of show you the dichotomy of the talent at a world championship. Like, I actually straight up qualified this year at the draft legal race. I came in 8th place, the top 10. But I know when I go to a world championship, I am at the lower end of the qualifiers. So
everybody's really, really fast.
Everyone's really fast. So when we would get up to that hill, I knew that was coming up. I would just drop back. I'm like, I'm not going down this thing in a pack. Are you kidding me? It's a death sentence.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I tried. In fact, at that race, I tried staying with the pack where I wanted to be. I came out on the swim where I wanted to be, and I think you did 2 laps of the bike course. In Switzerland, and in the first lap, I think I had 4 wrecks happen within 5 feet of me.
So crazy.
So it was nuts. And that was in the first lap. So by the time the second lap started, I was like, screw this. I'm riding by myself. So I literally just was like, okay, I'm going to try to keep going and get in front of this group and bridge up to the next group and then recover for a little bit in the back of that group. And then I'm going to go past that group and try to head to the next group.
Well, it's because it's 2 laps too, and it's a wave start. So you have the different age groups and genders going, a couple minutes apart. So once you get that second lap, I mean, the people that started before you and that started after you are all kind of caught up in this, second in this lap too. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's not linear, So what it reminds me of? It reminded me of. Did you ever see Armageddon? Remember that old movie with Bruce Willis? So when the second shuttle is it loses its thruster, so they're just riding and rocks are hitting the window. That's how I feel in a race sometime. I'm just like, people are crashing. I'm like, just please make it. Just please.
Just get through it. Just get through it. Oh yeah.
It's like, I want to be at the finish line. I'm not winning this.
Absolutely. There's been a couple of those races where, the bike course and bike is typically my favorite, and typically one of my best, where it's like, man, I have never been so happy to be off the bike and be on my feet.
Yeah.
And not
not crashing and running.
People
that's for
crashing.
sure.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So,
you're like, okay, I'm safe now.
So I remember, so this was in to kind of segue from what you were just talking about in Switzerland and the bike course. So I remember sitting afterwards and we were talking about your crit racing, and I had no friggin' idea what the hell that was. I've never heard of it. And then your buddy from Austin, right? He was there with his girlfriend or fiance or whatever. And he's talking and you're like, this guy's a legend at it, or I don't remember, but right, wasn't he really good at it or something? Or
he's really good at it. Cyclocross, crit racing. He's a very strong cyclist. Pete Murray, down in Austin, Texas, real good dude. Strong triathlete. He's really put up some really good times in the last few years. But yeah, it's basically NASCAR on a bike. There's a race here in Memphis that we put on called Tiger Lane Crit, and Memphis Tigers is the college here. So where the Memphis Tigers football stadium is, they put on a crit race. And what a crit race is just basically it's about a mile loop, give or take a little bit, but it's about a mile loop. It can be a circle, it can be a weird, whatever shape, but it's a loop that you do, and they do it for time. So they'll say, okay, this race is going to be a 30-minute race. You do as many laps as you can in 30 minutes. You're in a big group. Everybody's super tight together, working together. There can be a lot of wrecks a lot of times at these events. But in the Tiger Lane series in Memphis, it's basically a big oval You've got some headwind and stuff that you have to deal with, but it's a really fun spectator event because you can basically see, most of the race happening in front of you. You can see, Goldie's attacking here and trying to create a gap, and Phillip's back here trying to bridge up to it. And you can kind of see, and it's like, okay, when they came around last time, Phillip was sitting fourth wheel. Now he's sitting eighth wheel. Hey, work your way back up to the front and try to get you a little bit better spot. And it's really fun. They have,
Isn't Memphis in particular like really known for cycling? Because
we've got a pretty big cycling community. Like we've got some really good teams here in Memphis, both on cycling and triathlon. So some teams that have been around for a long time. We've had some really strong folks come from Memphis that have done some racing, both here, Memphis and outside of Memphis. Covington, things like that. A couple of the national championships on the road race series have come from Covington, which is right outside of Memphis and stuff. So yeah, we've had some strong folks.
And you're a big part of, explain a little bit about Los Locos, kind of like the idea of what it is. And, there's a million clubs and, groups you can be a part of, but I just kind of want you to share, because I know it is pretty unique in terms of what you have with your team, is how tight you guys are and how competitive you are. So get into that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've Los Locos has been around, I don't even know, actually. I'd have to look. I don't know, probably 30 years, maybe.
I'll cut this part out. I'll just bridge that gap so no one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He doesn't know. So yeah, it's been around a while. We've got probably, I think, about 50 folks on our team. It's it's typically invite only. What's nice about it is, we do a voting on folks at the end of the year if somebody new and got to vote in. I think it's like 2/3 majority. We've got some really cool sponsors. YMCA is a big sponsor. Outdoors Inc., which is one of the really cool, bike outdoor shops here in Memphis. They've got, climbing walls and stuff. They got all sorts of bikes that they sell. They can buy canoes and kayaks and all sorts of stuff like that. We've got some local businesses around here, Memphis Boat Center, Sweet Lala's, which is a bakery here. My company, Pyramex, was a sponsor for a long time. So we've got some really cool sponsors that, it make it great for us because it's fun for us in the sense of like, we do race reimbursement. So like, if I race 20 races, I get a point based on a point system. And then I get, basically a stipend, race reimbursement wise, depending on the event. And then, we use that a lot of times to pay for our gear. So like for all of our cycling gear, because all that stuff can be really expensive, especially if you buy nice gear, you can spend $250 on a cycling kit,
Well, that is why I have the same bike that I started out on. So it is not cheap. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So
it is definitely an expensive sport. So yeah.
And that's
nice because you can kind of accumulate all that stuff over time.
Yeah. Well, and that's exactly, to stay true to kind of like the identity of this show, this podcast. So we've taken a look at, part A of your life or part B, however you want to position it. But so you're the 2019 Aquabike age group national champion. You have been to world championships, age group, ITU, with triathlon. You do, high level crit racing as well. You're on this team that's sponsored in Memphis, Los Locos, right? So that's all one thing. Now, having said all of that, you're amateur. This isn't your pro. This isn't your job.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I work a full-time job. Probably work 45, maybe sometimes 50 hours a week in some cases. I'm a salesperson. I'm a territory sales manager for a company that makes safety products. So we sell hard hats, glasses, high-vis clothing, gloves, things like that. So right now, especially, it's a crazy time for us with everything that's been going on in the world. Yeah, it's been good. It's been good, but it's nuts. It's super busy. But yeah, from some of these pros, I'm lucky for me in my sense, it's kind of almost like a part-time job. And my wife is very cool and very flexible with me doing a lot of this training. But if I do probably 10 hours a week, let's say on average, 15 on the high end, so it's kind of like a part-time job. And then having a family and stuff. But as a pro triathlete, probably put it, new baby, little baby Monroe. Yep. So that's been an interesting challenge trying to sort out, how do I still do some of this stuff and then, still have time with my family and spend quality time doing that, which is a big factor. One, it's also super hot in Memphis, but it's a big reason why I started today riding at 3:00 in the morning, because I was done by 10, versus if I had started at 10, I'd have been done by 4.
Yeah, just a quick 7-hour ride, just nothing, no big deal.
Yeah. I'd be gone all day. So, my wife would kill me probably. So,
when
but if I started at 3,
when you were like, when you texted me that you were done with a 108-mile ride, I'm like, God, I'm a piece of garbage, because I was like just getting on the bike,
No.
So the other thing I was going to say too, so I was going to ask you is, generally speaking, I know this is just like every other aspect of everything going on in the world. It's a very unique time. So you're not, during the summer, what we're usually doing is peaking. You're kind of ramping up for specific races. But so let's pretend that this is a normal race season. Let's say that you have your key target races. Because, obviously, like I said, this is to kind of show people the opportunities that lie in front of them if they wanted to pursue Aquabike or duathlon or triathlon, kind of like what it takes to get to a level if you are working a 9 to 5 or a normal 40-hour work week job. So how do you fit it in? What's a typical training week look like for? I know you said 10 to 15 hours a week, kind of like proportionally, percentage wise, or like number of hours per day, like what time of day, just kind of fill in a little bit about what you do in terms of that.
Absolutely. So, for me, my job, Monday through Friday. So that's nice. I have the weekends off. I may sometimes do some stuff on the weekends, but Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 4:30, 7:30 to 7 to 5, is probably the normal work day, for me. So during the week, obviously it's harder to get in a lot more long stuff. I think usually maybe one day a week, like sometimes Tuesdays after work, I'll ride home and I may get 60 miles in. I think this past Tuesday I got 66 miles in. So I got a long ride in on Tuesday, but typically I'll try to do, after work. Some days I'll do some stuff before work and I can knock some stuff out, before work, but then I'm starting really early. So, to do it all. So the weekends are usually the heavier set. Mm-hmm. So, an average week, I'd say, maybe, right now, probably Monday, I might swim and do some strength work. Tuesday, I'll try to ride, maybe sneak in another swim if I can at lunch. Wednesday is usually typically supposed to be a run day. I've been slacking on the runs the last few weeks, especially with it being hot.
Hey, you're an aquabiker. There's no running. Running.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I'll run a little bit here and there. But yeah, it's my least favorite too. So I was like, But anyway, Wednesday's supposed to run, and usually another strength session. Total in a day, probably an hour and a half if you combine the run and the strength. Thursday, I'll usually do another bike session, maybe a swim. Friday is usually a run and either strength or swim. So, during the week, I'm getting in, 2 bikes, probably 2 runs, and about 2 to 3 swims, and 2 to 3 strength sessions.
So do you typically, is it a specific plan that you're following, or is it more of a general, like, today's a run day, today's a bike day, today's a swim day, and you just kind of like how you're feeling, you either go hard if you're feeling into it, or how does that work?
It's usually pretty specific. Like I have a coach here in Memphis, Dale Sanford, who's an awesome coach. He's been coaching me for 6 years now, I think.
Does he coach? Does he coach nationally? Like if someone wanted to, like get into it, because I know that's real big. Is virtual coaching? It doesn't really.
Absolutely,
you don't even have to have
and that's actually,
yeah,
absolutely. That's actually one of the things he's really great at. Is he's been coaching, like he's based here in Memphis, Tennessee, but he's got guys that he coaches in. There was a guy in Minnesota he coached for several years. I think Goose talked with him for a little while about coaching. Goose is obviously down in Texas and stuff, so he's got. They've got a guy that they coach, him and his partner that they coach, a guy based out of Kentucky.
Well, if you want to do me a favor,
too,
after this, shoot me a link. Shoot me his email or like a link or to his website or something like that, and I'll put it in the show notes when we're done. So
absolutely,
give him a plug, help him out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So
Okay.
yeah, so he'll set me up. It's usually pretty specific to whatever I'm doing. So we typically plan out the season in advance.
Hmm.
Usually at the beginning of the season or after we finish kind of a winter block, we usually sit down. We'll go to lunch somewhere. Whatever, get a beer.
Hmm.
One afternoon or something. Or a weekend, and we'll sit down and say, okay, hey, these are the goal races this year. This is how we're going to get there. This is what we want to do. And then we kind of start then breaking it down by week or into blocks,
Okay.
usually like
Yeah.
4-week blocks or something like that.
You reverse
With,
engineer it. You reverse engineer the big
exactly,
ones and then break it down. Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. So like,
So,
it's like, all right, I'm going to have 3 A races that you want to peak
yep.
for, and how, you peak and then like come back down and, recover a little bit and then get back to it and try to make gains in the off season and work on your limiters, the things that aren't as good. Obviously, like I said, I don't work weekends, so weekends tend to be the longer
Hmm.
stuff. So like even today, like I said, I rode 5.5 hours today. I think normally I'm supposed to run tomorrow about 10 miles. I may bike again because I gotta go for that case of beer with Bubba.
I love it.
Yeah,
Tell Bob I
so
say hey
I
too.
can't. I will,
Please.
absolutely. Yeah.
Um,
So
so
I'll
that
probably
was
bike tomorrow and stuff.
you talking about that. Just like I talked about it yesterday to Nikon. I was talking I don't know if you saw the swimmer that I interviewed yesterday, but it was a soul killer for me because
Uh-huh.
this was the first year that I actually sat down in February and went, all right, here's the A races, here's the B ones, you know
Yeah,
what I mean? And
yeah,
obviously there's nothing going on. So it was a
yep,
soul killer for me to take that because I had it on the fridge and I looked at it every day. I'm like that kind of person, like vision boardish guy, And
yeah, absolutely.
when I took it off and I had to throw that out, I was like, oh, like it was recent that I threw it out because I just like refused to like believe reality. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
it's tough.
It
Yeah, it's
is.
tough. It's funny when all this COVID started happening. Back in March, I remember seeing Gwen Jorgensen, famous
Mhm.
USA triathlete, had a quote where she said, I'm pretty sure it was her, where she said that trying to remember exactly how she worded it. Races, goals, and timelines change, or timelines change. Goals don't change. So like she's racing the
Ooh,
Olympics.
I like that.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, you've still got plans and goals, and a lot of
Yeah.
these people are just like, well, why are you racing? Why are you training so much right now when you're not doing? And there's going to be no racing this year,
Yes. Yes.
very little racing. Like, why are you doing it this year? I may not be doing it for this year. I'm doing it for next year.
Yep.
The time I put in now helps me be more successful next year.
I
So and especially,
friggin' love that. I friggin' love that.
yeah,
Yep.
and that goes back to like what we were talking about, like the more you can kind of grow as a multi-sport endurance athlete each year,
Hmm.
it just makes you faster and faster for next year.
And
So
it's a
that's why
mindset.
you can get
It's
absolutely.
completely a mindset. Like for
Yep.
me, I as soon as I saw, all this happening and everything getting canceled, I'm like, you know what I'm gonna do? There's inevitably going to be a number of people that are going to just drop off. They're going to
Yep.
see there's those people that you just said are going to say, there's no races. Why are you going so hard? What's the point? It's a
Yeah.
Saturday. Have fun.
Absolutely.
And you're up at
Yeah.
3 a.m.
Absolutely.
grinding because you see the forest through the trees. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
understand what at the end of there is really no end ever. I mean, right? It's
No.
you always want to
Yeah.
get better. You could always get better,
Yeah.
and
That's the
um,
great thing about the sport is like, I think starting off, like I said, that first full triathlon I did terrible. I was ninth in my age group, so
mhm,
whereas now I'm more competitive at a lot of these races, ninth in my age group. So, my goal was then to get better. So, but the main thing you don't immediately go to like, oh, I'm going to be the fastest person at this race. Well, it depends on who's at the race. And,
right,
there's some really fast people out there. And it depends on who shows up sometimes.
right,
But
right.
like the best thing to do is like, I want to be like, hey, I did this race last year and I did it in an hour and 10
You can
minutes.
always
I'd
race
like to do it in
yourself.
an hour,
Yep,
5 minutes,
yep.
this
You
year
can
and like
always
see
race
how I
yourself.
can do better. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think that's what immediately caught my attention about this sport too, is you always can look back at a race and know where you could have made up time. Do you know what I
Absolutely.
mean? You
Yeah.
look back and you're
Yeah.
like, that transition sucked.
Making a better version of yourself. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
another question
Yeah.
here
What
for
you
you.
could have done.
Another question here. Best post race meal. So what do you race for? When you're running and you're like, digging deep and you're like, if I don't finish under this time, I don't get to eat this, or you know what I mean? Whatever. What
Yeah,
is that food for you?
yeah.
What drives
I'm probably still gonna eat it anyway.
you? Okay.
Just in all honesty, man, I love Mexican food.
Okay.
That's like probably my go-to in terms of me, like food. It's probably like my guilty pleasure, if you will. So I mean, like, got done with the 108-mile ride today. Like, we got Ponchos around the corner, so they make really good cheese dip and stuff. So we got some Mexican food. So
Nice.
or usually have your race recovery beverage. Your favorite brewski.
Yes.
That you want afterwards. So there's nothing better than having a little victory beer after you get done.
I was gonna show off that
We
show off that bicep. By the way, I saw you raise scratch your ear there.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Look at that, true
yeah, got a little
cyclist.
bike.
Got the bike
Yeah,
on there.
yeah,
Yep.
yep, yep,
For those listening, he's got a bike tattoo. Sorry.
yep. No, one of my favorite things, like when we did Cleveland, there was a little bar that's right there at the end of the race, and like afterwards we said, hey, everybo's starting at different times. We'll meet over here at the bar and have a couple of beers afterwards.
Yep.
And it was fun because you could sit there and watch people race and finish, and drink some beers at the end and watch people coming in.
And
so.
you earned it at that point too. That was
exactly.
I forgot about that bar. That was fun. That was a good time.
That was cool. It was a cool spot. Yeah, absolutely.
So the last question I'm gonna say is, what's next? What do you want to continue to be? Do you want to, like, I guess, defend your throne? On the Aquabike this year, or are you looking to do more focus on triathlon, or what are some more longer term goals that you have set for?
Yeah. So, it's funny. I've made some kind of long-term goals for myself. That honestly, may take years for me to get to. But like, part of the reason I did the Aquabike last year, I would like to do it again this year if it happens. I'm already signed up for it. So if it happens, I'm going to go do it again. Like I mentioned, it qualified me for World's Aquabike in Almere, right outside of Amsterdam. My goal would be, for that on the Aquabike portion, I think I could do pretty well even on a world level for something like that. Since it's my two, swim and bike are my two best events. So, I've done, Golda, you and I have done draft legal age group nationals, triathlon. So this, swim, bike, run. I think that's typically a, what is that? Kilometer swim. I think it's probably like a 25K bike and then a 5K run.
Yep.
Something like that. So,
quick and fast.
I think for me, yeah, real fast, sprint triathlon. Yep, absolutely. But for me, like, I've probably never done better than 30th place at Worlds, for something like that out of maybe 100 people. So I mean, I'm happy with that. Hey,
for context, that was 76. So
yeah. So I mean, but like, who else says, like, how many people can say I'm 76 out of 100 in the world, at something, that's a great thing to be able to say. But I see it as also like, the competitiveness drive in me. I see it as like, all right, Aquabike is, probably a better, more suited to my skill set, to my strengths. Maybe I could go and be top 3, at a race like this. So, that's kind of a goal for me. And then eventually, even on the age group side for triathlon, going to age group nationals and seeing, especially if you've ever been to an award ceremony at some of these national events, man, that's something that'll make you hungry. You see there all these guys that are just.
I was just about to say, man, when we were in Lausanne at that after party, where, we do the jersey swaps or all that stuff.
Yeah.
My goal is, I don't care how old I am. I want to be on it. If it takes me till I'm 85 years old and I'm the only one in the race and I get to go on that podium, I don't care. I can still say that I did it, So what you're saying resonates with me deep, because that is, when you see those people on the podium, you're like, why not? Because it's
I can if they can do it, I can do it. You can get there. You got to put in the work, you got to put in the time, but you also got to think about it too, is like, all right, the days you don't want to get up early in the morning, the days you want to sleep in instead and not do anything, try to think about those, those moments where you saw this and that what you wanted, and all right, I got to put in the work to get there.
I got to propose to my fiance in Lausanne, Switzerland. I wouldn't have just
Yeah.
randomly got on a plane and, done that,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
triathlon allowed me the opportunity for that. So,
Yep.
that's like
Yep.
exactly what you're saying. These experiences that you get, and able to travel the world and meet really cool people like you and,
Absolutely. Yeah.
develop these relationships.
I'll always remember that you guys, you proposing and she said yes right then because it was right at we
It
saw
was
you
the
guys right
parade.
at the parade. Yeah, the Parade of Nations. So you've got everybody wearing their Team USA gear and all their other country gear, and everybody's, marching in line. They got their flags and stuff. And it was really cool. And Goldie's like, hey, we got engaged. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like I think I stopped in the parade, was like,
You did.
I gotta stand here and talk to you guys
And
for a
it's a
while.
little
Like,
bit of a
I'll catch
funny
up.
it's a funny situation too, because if you know me, it won't surprise you. But guess who dropped the ball and didn't buy the parade package? So I wasn't I wasn't allowed to march in the parade because I didn't have the clothes. So there's a funny picture of me that Team USA is walking by. Phil came and slapped us up and hugging. It's a picture of me just like making a sad face as
Yep.
they walk away. But I mean, Phil, we've been talking for an hour, man. So
Oh my gosh, it flies
right?
by.
Can
Yeah.
you believe it?
Yep.
But listen, man, I love you. I thank you so much, for doing
Yeah,
this.
buddy. Yeah.
And this was, I think, hopefully, like I said, the idea of this whole show is to inspire others to understand that
Yeah.
you didn't decide 2 years ago that you were, going to be or you didn't decide like from a young age that you were going to be an Aquabike national champion. It's just a series of events have led you to this point, and it's a series
Absolutely.
of kind of like what ifs, and
Yep.
it's you
Yep.
scratch that competitive itch. I know I say that all the time, but
Yeah.
you scratch
No,
that competitive
absolutely.
itch. It's a great feeling of accomplishment. It's something that your family can be proud of. And I mean, your
Yeah.
parents were over there, right? When I met
Yeah.
them,
No,
and
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And they like, it's funny. I told my mom the other day I was going to be talking to you today, and she goes, oh yeah, I loved Goldie. We met him
that's
in
great.
Rotterdam, and you've met my 87-year-old grandfather. I've got the chance
Yep.
to travel the world with my 87-year-old grandfather and my parents and my wife and stuff, and see a lot of cool places. And it's created some cool opportunities, and
Yep.
stuff that, it's great vacations and stuff. And it's been fun events that, normally I would have probably never done. So,
Exactly. After Lausanne, I mean, it's a perfect
yeah.
example that we're sitting on this. I wouldn't call it a beach, but it was like a waterfront, beautiful
Yeah.
bar with like, we were in
Yeah.
lawn chairs overlooking the
Yeah.
mountains, and this is
Yeah.
beautiful water, and it's just like
Gorgeous.
eh,
Yeah.
I would have never gone to like, a travel agent wouldn't suggest that, or like it wouldn't have been
Yeah.
anywhere that ever would have
Oh,
crossed my
absolutely.
mind, but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Still one of
man.
my favorite memories is jumping in and swimming and hanging out over there. It's great.
Oh
It's
yeah.
great.
Well, listen, man, thanks for your time. Again, congratulations on everything that you've achieved, and congratulations on everything you are going to achieve, and on your newborn and your family and
Thanks,
everything.
man.
And
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Well, love you, like I said, and looking forward to
Man, love you
many,
too.
many, many more adventures in the world of endurance sports moving forward. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Give Jenny my love,
I
and
will.
man, y'all take care, and good talking and chatting with you. I really enjoyed it.
Absolutely, man. Well, thanks for your time, and we'll see you.
All right. See ya.